is Sunday afternoon, October 17th, 2021, and we are beginning our journey into indoor gardening. I started off with doing a ton of research on YouTube for different ways to grow and different containers you can put them in based on different plants and all of that stuff. So just getting a start on it, and I'm going to begin with getting a bunch of 5-gallon buckets and painting them black because nobody had black buckets. With it being October 2021, there's all kinds of supply shortages out there, and you never know what you're going to be able to get. So today my goal is to paint 8 buckets with a kind of a gloss black finish, so that way they may potentially have reflective properties and not let as much light through, which will reduce the potential for algae growth in the buckets once they're under the light. So I'll show you here in just a second what I'm working with. If you hear a dog in the background, my German Shepherd is not so thrilled that I'm out here by myself. But I don't feel like chasing a dog down the road because I'm dealing with a bit of a cold right now. So, all right, let me show you what I'm working with. I'm starting off with Tractor Supply buckets. They are food grade, heavy duty, and BPA free. The goal is to get some kind of plastics that are safe for food. And if you look on the bottom of these, they are a number 2 plastic, which should work fine. The downside with these being red is that you can see light through them. So holding this up, you can totally tell. Also, they ran out of red lids, so I'm dealing with white lids. My way to mitigate the light leakage is going to be not only painting them, but then putting a reflective material on there. And I'll show you that in its raw form, and then once it's completed. But today's goal is to get 8 of these buckets painted so that there is no light seeping through, with the hope that they won't grow any algae. This is the insulate that I was talking about. I just bought a pretty big roll here. It is 16 inches by 25 inches. The idea is that I'd be able to cover also this tote here. That tote is going to be used for our cucumbers and any kind of plants that are going to require a massive root system or are heavy drinkers. I'm going to be using that. It's a 15-gallon tote. It might be a little too small, but we'll see how it all turns out. Here's the other buckets that I've got. They are waiting. I'm just starting with 8 because I want to see how well this spray paint works on those. So hopefully this amount of insulate should work. We've got 25 feet of it, so not only would it be able to cover these totes, but then also have enough to cover more than enough of those buckets there. Like I said, I'm going to be painting these, spray painting all of these buckets here using a Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch paint and primer. The idea is that it's going to be thick enough, so 1 spray equals 2 sprays of coverage is what they say. But it's fast drying for indoor or outdoor wood, metal, plastic, and more. I wanted it to be able to do both indoor and outdoor because of the amount of water that's going to be in these buckets. I do want to be able to monitor that if there are scratches or anything wearing thin on the paint. What I'll do is touch them up to make sure that, again, we're not letting any light in to avoid any kind of algae growth. All right, we're going to start painting now. One thing that's worth saying, if you don't know, you need to be painting in a wide open space. So here I am just in the driveway of the neighborhood, and we're going to be painting these buckets here. I'm going to try to do 2 coats. They say for this particular product that you can apply a second coat within 1 hour. The goal will be to have at least 2 coats on this bucket, and then at that point I will probably shine a bright light either on the inside of the bucket or on the outside of the bucket and look in. just to see how well it's been covered. So here we go. Time to paint. All right, I'm just going to make multiple passes going down the side. The thing about it being round is you're going to get some of this paint to start dripping. So occasionally give it a break. You can see where I missed a spot there. All right, that looks like it's going to be good and thick. Like I said, I'm going to try to maybe do 2 coats, especially with how much is going on. And I need to make sure that I get the inside of that as well, because that will be a source of light seepage. So check back when it's all done. All right, so here is our first painted bucket. I see a couple of spots that are a little bit thin, but we got a pretty good covering there. The spots that are thin are mostly on the rim, and so I'm not too terribly worried about that. Bigger thing is going to be making sure that the inside there gets taken care of. I missed a couple of spots, but we'll get there. You can also see a little bit of red down at the base, but we're going to have the lid covering that. So that is not going to be as big of a concern as something else. Every once in a while you get some bugs that want to join your party here. One thing to think about is with the handles, sometimes they will bang down right into your paint. One other thing I recommend, if you don't want to have to scrub spray paint off your hands for hours, use gloves. It makes it a lot easier. All right, 1 down and 7 more to go. We're going to do a second coat on this guy once I finish at least 3 more. All right, so we got 1 can of paint to knock out 5 first layers of our buckets, which means shouldn't be as much for the second can of paint. Hopefully, if I can get these other, I'll go ahead and do another 5 actually for the first layer. So that'll be 2 cans of paint for 10 buckets for their first layer. I imagine that the second layer won't need to be quite as thick. It'll be mostly a touch-up. So that's where we're at, just little by little. Got a little bit of paint there on the driveway, but good thing about owning a house is that, well, it's my driveway. I can paint it if I want to. So I'm going to do that, and then once the buckets are done, I'm going to hit the lids. All right, we are 10 buckets in, and I'm fixing to get these lids spray painted next. So like I said, we got 2 cans of spray paint for 10 buckets. I have a little bit left in that second can, so I'm going to see as many lids as I can get. Then as soon as I'm done doing the first layer on the lids, I'll go back and do our second layer on 1, 2, then we went 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we'll get the lids also. All right, we are 10 cans and 10 lids in. I'd say about 2.5 cans of spray paint used. Hopefully the last can and a half will get me through a second coat. We're going to see how this first one is looking. It looks still a bit wet. Not bad though, honestly. In fact, it's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and touch it up. Let's just do a quick look test here. Put it in. Yeah. So this is where we're seeing some of those spots that are not well covered. So what that does is that gives me a direction. I need to make sure that I get this a little better. So having said that, we're going to jump right into coat number 2. Okay, here we are, second coat of paint. For the lids, I didn't go quite as in depth as I did the first round. I just made sure the tops were pretty solid in their covering. And so now I'm just going to wait about an hour to let these dry completely, even though they say within 20 minutes it should be good to touch. I'm just going to let them air out here because I don't want to put all that stinking paint in my garage. Then the next thing will be, starting very soon, we have our 2-inch. It is a hole saw, and then what we will do is we will put, for most of these lids, we're probably going to put 3 holes in each of them. And what that's going to do is give us the opportunity to have 3 different seeds growing for each one. So for example, with lettuce. Now every once in a while, I think what we're going to do is just have 2 holes depending on how needy the seeds are. So I probably won't drill all of them yet. I'll start with 3 drilled, but now we've got at least 10 buckets and lids prepared for growing, which hopefully will take place in about a week. So I think what we're going to do is, for the night, we're just going to bring all of this into the garage, even though it'll have kind of a strong scent. Then I'll just leave the garage opened for the majority of the day tomorrow. So we've got some help out here. We're going to move all this inside, and then maybe even tomorrow we'll get moving on to the next step.